Okay, welcome to the first week on Microsoft Word. This chapter in the textbook is called Create Letters and Memos. In this chapter, we're going to be looking at some of the very basic building blocks upon which you're going to be doing all of your Word um, instructions. So we're going to look at typing some text, which is pretty straightforward. How do you select text in Microsoft Word? Adding styles, cut and copy paste, spell check, grammar checking, synonyms, format painter, um, footers, and we'll show you how to save your document as a PDF, which is going to take all of about 13 seconds. Okay, so for this chapter, you're going to require two starting files from Fanch Online, so let's go through and do that. So you're going to go to Fanch Online, you're going to click on Content. You're going to search down the side until you find Word, Create Letters and Memos, and you will click to open up the file. All right. Now, just as an informational point, there is some information here that you can read through. If you were to click on here, you're going to open up a study that was done by a company called Burning Glass Technologies. This was done in about 5 years ago. And what they did was they took a look at want ads across the United States, something like a couple of 25 million job postings, searching for defined skills that employers were looking for. And then they broke that down. So it's interesting just to take a look at that. They talk about there are hard skills and soft skills. So hard skills would be if you were going to be an engineer, a hard skill might be an engineering degree. Soft skills, on the other hand, were things like ability to communicate. But Word, Excel, and PowerPoint were considered to be soft skills. The reason they're soft skills is simply based on the fact that a lot of people that are working with those applications are self-taught. They basically open up the application and kind of figure out as they go along. And what we wanted to talk about in this course is how you kind of get ahead of that curve by learning the skills so that you're not just kind of fumbling around. Anytime you teach yourself how to do something, there may be better ways to do things, but as long as it works, you don't really care. That's the same sort of thing that we're going to be looking at, is how we can, avoid having those issues crop up. So it's just there for your own interest. You'll see in there that Word and Excel are kind of like the number 2 and number 3 soft skills that employers are looking for. So it is very much a handy skill to have. So okay, so let's just go down through here. So what we're going to do is we're going to download 2 files. If you're working along in the textbook, you will see in the textbook that they only have you download this one file, the Word intern positions. That's the file you're going to be copying and pasting from. This file here, I basically just created it so that you don't have to do as much typing. Okay, so this isn't a typing course. I don't, how you type and how well you type and so on is really not pertinent. So I've just created that extra file. So again, what you'll do is you will click on the button. It will say, where do you want to store it? We're going to store it in downloads, and you can ignore the one. As a point of interest, when you're downloading files, if you download a file and the file already exists, so that the file name is already there, Microsoft will automatically add bracket and a number, so 1, 2, 3, 4, so on, so that you're not replacing the original file, you are creating a brand new file with the one. This works fine for us. And the second file we're going to download is the intern positions file. That may or may not also have it. No. And I'm going to click save. And again, if you're working with Google, the files that you download will move into the downloads folder and will show up here on the downloads bar at the bottom of the screen. If you're working with Firefox, the files will be put in your download folder, and you will have a little arrow up in the top right hand corner where you can access those files. If you're working with Safari, they'll go into the downloads folder, and you'll have an arrow inside a circle up in the top right hand corner. If you are working with Edge, every time you click on download, you will get a pop-up message that says, do you want to open or cancel? you're going to click open, save, or cancel. You're going to click on save. The issue is if you click on open, it will open Word and then open the file. In this particular case, we want to do that for the second file, but not for the first. We want to just have the first file available but not open. So and as well, and this isn't an issue for online students, for face-to-face students, if you click the open button, what it will do is it will create the file in a directory, great big long directory, but basically the problem is that at the college, that directory is not accessible to you to be able to go and find the file after. So for the instruction, it really doesn't matter. But when you're working with your grader assignment, you need to know where your file is so that you can submit it for MyIT Lab to mark it. If you use the open button in Edge, then if you were to close the file and then you went back in and tried to find it to submit it to MyIT Lab, you wouldn't be able to find it. You'd have to start the whole process all over again. So you're always better on the Edge document to click the save button. You'll then be presented with another dialog box that asks you, do you want to just save it or save as? So save, we'll put it in downloads. Save as, we'll put it in a file in a folder of your choice. And then it will bring up another box that says, then do you want to open it? Then you could click on open to open it in the application. Okay, so that's what we need to do to get you started here today. Okay, so we're in skill number 1, type letter text. Basically here we're just going to do a little bit of typing and get some things set up. We will talk a little bit more about some other actions and activities. So remember so I've opened the file, create letters and memos start file, and I'm ready to start working on the skill. So the first thing you need to do, and again we've talked about this before, is anytime you download a file from the internet, you're going to have the enable box or bar at the top. So we're clicking enable editing, which opens up my Word document. Now the first thing I want you to be aware of is that what you want to do is turn on this button here. So this is a toggle button. You click it once, it turns it on, click it again, it turns it off. It's called show hide. And what show hide will do is show non-printable characters on your screen. So you can see now that you've got these little backwards P's, those are called paragraph marks. That tells you in Word what is a paragraph. And paragraphs can have text in them, or sometimes paragraphs are blank. So paragraphs are important. If I go up here in the Home tab, you can see that we have a font group here and we have a paragraph group here. Fonts, so anything that you do in the font group, you have to first select the text that you want to apply the font to and then apply the font. So if I wanted to bold something, I could click on a word and click bold to bold that word. If I simply click and just click maybe a single character, I could bold just that one character and not the whole word. Okay, so anything that you're doing in the font group, you first have to select the text and then apply it. Anything that you do in the paragraph group affects the whole paragraph. So you don't have to select the paragraph, you just have to be in the paragraph. So I'm in the paragraph here. If I was to click shading, not sure what this is, shading, then it applies shading to the whole paragraph. I don't have to select it all. If I click on the save button, or these are your alignment buttons, so left justified, center justified, right justified, and just justified, which is square left and right margins, then it would apply that format to the whole paragraph. All right, so it's important in Word that you understand where a paragraph is, and it's more important when you get into MyIT Lab, because MyIT Lab will ask you at certain times to move to the bottom of the document or the top of the document. And remember that a paragraph, if you turn this off, I'm just going to add a couple of quick paragraphs here. If I turn this off, then I may well think that this is the end of my text, but in actual fact the end of my document is down here. So it's important that I realize that so that I can just follow along with the instructions that MyIT Lab is giving me. All right, okay, so in the textbook it has you actually on a blank brand new document, but we're going to, the document that you downloaded has this text typed in, which is way over in step number 7. I'm just trying to save you having to type in all that stuff. So click at the very start of the document. All right? Now, keyboard shortcuts, and there's a link in Fanshawe Online to a list of all the keyboard shortcuts in Microsoft Word. Keyboard shortcuts are a very quick and easy way to move around within your document. So if I want to go, let's say I'm down here somewhere, I want to go to the top of the document, and if I was 5 pages down, I can use the Control button plus the Home key. So the Home key is right above your Delete key, and it's H-O-M-E. If I click on the Home key, it takes me right straight to the top of the document. Control End, E-N-D, takes me to the end of the document. Okay, page up and page down moves a page at a time, and so other ones, Control A selects all the text in my document. We've already talked about Control C for copy, Control V for paste, Control X for cut, Control B is bold, Control I is italics, and so on. So rather than having to look for options and go to move your cursor around, you can just use keyboard shortcuts. It's a handy way to move around in your document. Okay, so I'm going to move to the top of my document, Control Home, and I am going to type Aspen Falls Human Resources. Now this is also an interesting component here. Notice that as I'm typing that text in, that my paragraph now is 3 lines long instead of 2. And that's because in Microsoft Word there's something called word wrap, and I'm sure you're all familiar with word wrap. It basically says that when you're typing in information, when your information becomes too large for the space that you're typing into, it'll automatically wrap it down to the next line. You want to make sure that you're using word wrap because it gives you all the flexibility that you need in Word. I'm going to hit Enter. Add a new line. I'm now going to type 500 South Aspen Street. Enter. And type Aspen Falls, California, comma, 93463, zip code. Enter. Enter twice. I'm going to type a date, May the 8th, 2018, and type enter 3 times. Okay, so we're now up to step number 5. Type Dr. George Gatto. Enter. Aspen Falls Community Center. Doesn't matter if you use Canadian or American spelling, but you do have to put the E in. Okay, 1 College Drive. Enter. Enter. And dear Dr. Gatto, enter, subject, colon, City Hall internships, enter, and then all the text that's in there in step 7 and step 8 are already typed in for you. Now you're going to go to the very bottom of the document, so Control End to move to the bottom. You're going to hit Enter and type sincerely, comma, enter, enter, Evelyn Stone, enter, Human Resources Director. Okay, and that's it for skill number 1. Okay, moving on to skill number 2, apply styles and set grammar and spelling options. So styles are pre-built formats. And we saw this within PowerPoint as well, that you could have certain formats, picture styles, slide styles, and so on, so that your document looks cohesive. It looks like it was built with all the same types of styles and formats. on different components of the document so it looks professional. So you can see here you've got styles across the top. So you've got normal, no space, heading 1, heading 2. Let me just select some text. So there's, there's heading, there's no space, there's heading 1, there's heading 2, there's title, subtitle, and as you can see, there's a number more in here. The name of the style doesn't really mean anything. It just means that it's kind of an indication of the type of information that's included. But you can do whatever you want. You can set anything up for any way that you want. Later on, we'll show you how to create your own styles. All right. So those are what styles are. The other thing that this chapter talks about are flagged errors. So you can see here you've got this wavy red line under the word gato. That's basically identifying that it's possibly a spelling mistake. The double blue line is a grammar error. So let's just take a look. So if you see something with a double line with a flagged error, you can right click on that line and it will show you if it's a spelling error. It will give you the ability to check it. So it's giving you here some suggestions. In this case, this is somebody's name, so you're going to click on ignore all, but just go through the other options you have here. As an example, if you're using an American dictionary, but you're using some Canadian spelling like center with C-E-N-T-R-E versus R-E-R, then I can click on add that to the dictionary so it will no longer show up as a flagged error. Okay, so in this case we're going to click on ignore all because we don't want that to be treated as an error message going forward. Okay, so that's basically, so now what we want to do here is this is currently set up as normal text. I'm going to select that line. Now selection, remember, you can always just click and drag to select a text. In Word you also have the option to move your cursor out to the left margin and select a whole line at a time. So you can see that when I move it out to the left margin it changes to this backwards pointing arrow and I could click and drag. Now what I want to do is on these two lines I want to get rid of this space. So if I double click on the line you can see that or double click somewhere, you can see the box here. You can see that there's all this space here after. That's called paragraph spacing, and we'll deal with that later on in the course. But I don't want that spacing here. I want these lines to be close together, so I'm going to select them both and I'm going to click on no spacing, and that will get rid of that extra space that was there. It's still here because I didn't select this line, but on these ones it's gone. Okay, and the last part of this about this chapter is how to change your Word settings. Again, we'll click on File, go down to the bottom to Options, and these are all the pre-built settings within Microsoft Word, and you can see it's quite extensive. You can make a lot of different changes to things here. So here's the username, so that's still set up as London. I'll change that to Cam Quinn. That's the name that will show up. Well, actually it's not going to matter because I'm not going to save this document, but normally what would happen, that would change that, and that's the name that shows up under your information, and when you're doing comments and that sort of thing, that's the name that would show up. Okay, so you've got general options, you've got display options. Okay, so what do you want to have displayed? Proofing options, we're going to come back to that. Here's your save options, so where's your autosave going, and what document, what is your default save locations, the language that you're using, ease of use are your accessibility issues, and then under advanced you've got editing options, cut, copy, and paste, and so on and so forth. Normally you're not going to bother changing any of these, but you should be aware that they are changeable, and I'm not going to worry about the rest of what they're talking about here, so I'm just going to click OK, and we're done with this particular skill. Okay, skill number 3, select and insert text. Primarily we're just going to looking at select and text. Most of this stuff I'm sure you're familiar with, but there are some unique things within Microsoft Word. So let's click here first. Click in the word Aspen Falls Human Resources. So remember I told you earlier that there's formatting. So you have the font group and you have the paragraph group. So anything you do in the paragraph group, you just have to be inside the paragraph And again, this is a paragraph because it ends with a paragraph marker. That's a paragraph, that's a paragraph. This is also a paragraph, as are these two. So I'm going to click here on center to center that text. I'm going to select these two lines and center those as well. Alright, so let's just talk a little bit about how to select text in Microsoft Word. In Microsoft Word, if you click once, that's your insertion point. So that's just put your cursor somewhere in the document, then I could start typing to insert new text. Now what they want us to do here, go down here to, oh yeah, so we also have students very capable of working. So we're just going to, if clicking once is going to add my insertion point. If I wanted to select the word vary, I could click and drag it. Make sure you include the space after, because if you delete the word, you want to get rid of that space. In Word, I can also just double click on a word and it will select the word and the space afterwards. If I triple click on a word, it will select a whole paragraph. If I control click, it will select a full sentence. I also have the option, if I can move my cursor out here to the left margin, you can see that now if I click, it will actually select a line at a time, regardless of spacing for period or for sentences and so on. Okay, so single click is your insertion point, double click is to select a word in the period, triple click is to select a paragraph, control click is to select a sentence, and I can also just move my cursor out to the left margin to select a line at a time. Alright, so if I double click on the word vary, then I can hit the delete button to delete that, or I could retype something else to replace it, but we're just going to delete that. Okay. And we want to get rid of the spacing between, so again, remember we talked here, that's extra spacing, that's paragraph spacing. I don't want that extra spacing on these two lines, so I'm going to go up here and click on no space. I'll do the same thing here, no space. Okay. And in the paragraph that begins, thank you, the word us. Oh, yeah. So it might benefit both us and your students. Well, we don't want that. So I'm going to double click here. And another thing, I always find that people have a tendency, if I want, let's say I want to replace the word us with the text City Hall. Anytime you're in Excel, Word, or PowerPoint, if you have something selected, then when you start to type, it will replace what you got selected. So there's no need to hit the delete button to delete it first. I can simply start typing and replace that text with new text. And it's also important as well, if I've got something, let's say I've selected the whole document, if I start typing right now, then I'm replacing everything in that document. And all of a sudden, everything's gone, I've got just that. So remember, you've always got your undo and your redo buttons. So here's your undo button. That's the redo button. Bring it back again. Control Z is also your keyboard shortcut for undo. All right, and there we go. Now in the textbook they have you entering a whole bunch of other stuff here after this paragraph here. So they want you to go here, hit enter, and type a bunch of stuff. All right. Again, this isn't a typing test, so it's not crucial that you understand how to do that. So, all right. So I'm going to actually undo what I just typed in there because I don't want it to be there when I do spell check. And we're good. Okay, that's good. Skill number 4, cut, copy, and paste. So we're just going to look at how you do cut, copy, paste. The important thing in this particular skill is also how to create a page break within a document. So we'll come back to the cut, copy, and paste in a second, but I want to insert a page break. In other words, I want to have a new document at the end of my document. Now, I don't know how many times I've seen people that if they wanted to get a new document here, they just keep hitting the enter button, right, until they get to the next page. But that's absolutely the wrong way to do this. What we've added up here is a whole bunch of extra paragraphs, and the problem with doing it this way is if I was to add some text up above here, it's going to push those page breaks or those paragraph marks down, and This is how you end up with orphan documents or pages within your document and so on. So this is absolutely the wrong way to go about moving to the next page. So I'm going to delete all of those. All right. The proper way to move to the next page is to create a page break. And a page break in the document would say that this is the end of that page, I want to move on to the next page. The nice thing about creating a page break is if I was then to add text above here, it would just move the page break down, but I would still have whatever is on page 2 would continue to be on page 2. Okay, there's a couple of ways to add a page break. I can click on Insert, and there's page break there. I can click on Layout, and there's an option here called Breaks, and I can click on Page Break somewhere here, right there, Page Break. Or I can simply do a Control plus Enter. And you can see now I have this option here. This is again an unprintable character, but it shows me as page break is here, and I'm now on the second page. Okay. All right, so now what I want to do is I want to bring in all of the text from that other document that we downloaded at the start of the lesson, from the document called was it interns Word_01 interns. So I want to bring in that information or that text into this document. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open that other Word document. All right, so the simplest way, of course, is to click on File, Open, and I'm going to go over here to Browse, and it's in my downloads, and it's right here, Word 01 Intern Positions. It's going to open up Word, and it's going to open that file in that other document. I'm going to enable editing. So now if I go down to my taskbar down here, you can see that if I was to click on Word, there's my original document, and there's the new document that I just opened. So I can move between the two documents there. I can also do it up here on the View tab and switch windows. So there's the other document. Right. But again, I want to go back to this one. Okay, so now I want to select everything in that document. Now I could just click here and drag to select it all, but it's a lot faster to use a keyboard shortcut. The Control plus the letter A selects everything in the document. I think in the textbook they talk about doing it a different way. In the Home and the Editing groups, click on Select. So Home, Editing, yeah, I can say Select all here. But again, Control A is the faster way to do it. So once I've selected that text, now what I want to do is I want to copy that text and then paste it in my other document. So this is actually a two-step process within Word. Anytime you do a copy or a cut, what it will do is it'll take the text that you currently have selected, and a copy will move it to the clipboard and leave it in the original location. A cut will move it to the clipboard but remove it from the original location. So and the clipboard is over here in the Home tab. You can see I've got this box called Clipboard. I'll show you what happens in a second. So I want to copy. I don't want to remove the text from here. I just want to copy it so I can put it in my other document. So I'm going to do Control C. Whoops, still got this open. I'm going to do Control C, or I could have gone up here and clicked on Copy, or I could have right-clicked and clicked the word Copy. And then I'm going to go back to my original document. So I'm going to click down here on the taskbar and go to my original document. I want to make sure that my insertion point, so that's that flashing bar, is on the second page. And then I can do a paste, or I can do a Control V to paste, or I can go to the Home tab and click Paste, or I could right-click and click Paste. So if I right-click and I can paste, those are my paste options. We looked at that last in Common Features way back when. So there's your, use the destination theme, keep the source formatting, merge, create a picture, you don't want to do that, and keep text only. In our case, we just want to use the original paste options. Again, same sort of thing, and let me just undo that. I can do a Control V to paste, and then if I do want one of those other options, I have my paste options button down here, and I could change it to a different option here. Right? Or I could click on paste, just paste, or I can click here and paste options to bring up the paste options. Okay, so now I'm done with that other document, so I'm going to go back to it and I'm going to close it. I don't need it anymore. We didn't make any changes to it, so it's not asking me to select any, to save any changes. All right. Yeah, okay, well that's it for this one. So. Okay, so this one is going to be very quick. We're going to just do grammar and spelling checks. So again, we've talked about the fact that double red line tells you that there is a spelling error. But if you want to spell check your whole document, there's a couple of ways you can do that. In Word, and again, this is an Office 365. It may be different on your screen, but in Word, in Office 365, they've replaced spell check with this thing called Editor. So if you click on the Review tab, you see in the left margin, you've got this thing called Editor. You may still have spell check on there, which is fine. So if I click on the Editor, it's going to spell check my whole document. So you can see I've got 3 spelling errors and 3 grammar errors. For whatever reason in the textbook they have a grammar error showing up. The textbook is probably right, but for whatever my grammar checker's not picking it up. But we'll come back to that. So let's fix the spelling mistakes first. So if I click on spelling, it'll bring up the editor spelling check. So you can see I've got Gatto as being selected. Well, I don't want. We're going to ignore all of those. In here it tells me that I have a double word, so I've got the, so my option is to delete the repeated word. And in here they say computer, and again you've got options here for different words you might have meant, and in this case we're just going to click on computer, and I could have actually done well, do it again. On grammar checks, it's telling me that the employees should have an apostrophe S on it, which is correct. So I'm going to click on that. And dear doctor, 2 periods, I don't think so, so I'm going to ignore that. And here we're going to leave that one because we're going to fix that in a different way. Okay. Turn that off. And I think I might just, I'm just going to continue on here. So I'll have to change that back. So I'm now going to move on to skill number 6, which is insert synonyms. Now, one of the things that it talks about in the textbook is that now that I have done that check, if I do the editor check again, it's going to say that there are none, even though we didn't actually fix this one, which was a mistake, or which was a suggested error. If you want to recheck your document, you can go into options, and if you go into proofing, there's an option here called recheck the document. And if I was to click that, click yes, click OK, then you can see that Gatto is showing as a spelling mistake again. If I was to click on the editor, I'm going to have the 2 spelling errors. So again, ignore all. And my grammar error, so I've still got that one for doctor. Yeah, so they're saying that we should probably have a question mark, but we don't want that, so we're going to turn that off. And that's it. And then we've got this so again, so we're going to close that down. Okay, now the other thing that you do have an option on here, so I'm going to right click on the word so, and oh crap. Normally I should have synonyms. All right, I think this is just because of the way it's come up. So we'll just continue on. I'm not going to worry too much about it. So synonyms give you other alternatives for words. So if you've got a certain word, you can replace that with a different. Let's say you're using the same word over and over and over to get a document. Sometimes rather than having it being repetitious, you want to put in a synonym. So I'm sure with notebook, not that it matters, but you always have the option to go in there. I can also go in here and go to the thesaurus, which is going to bring up the thesaurus pane, which gives you further information about the different options. Okay, all right, so that's skills 5 and 6. Okay, so skill number 7, use the format painter. This is pretty much review. We've already done the format painter in PowerPoint, so we're just going to quickly review how to work through that. So I want to select the heading, so I can either click to drag or I can move my cursor. So I'll select my heading. I'm going to apply, I'm going to change the font size to 16, bold it, and select Cambria. Okay, so and I'm going to select these 2 lines here, change those to italics. Okay, so I'm going to select this line. What I want to do is I want to copy those formats to this heading down here. Right, so I could go down here and select it and apply Cambria font 16 and bold. And just be aware, when you're working with my IT Lab can't tell how you do things. So if I just went down here and if my IT Lab said use the format painter to copy the formats from this location to this location, I could simply go down to that second location and redo the formats, and my IT Lab will mark it correct. So I don't have to use format painter. Of course you want to, because it makes a lot more sense, but you don't have to. Alright, so I'm going to click here on format painter. I'm going to go down, I'm going to apply those formats. Now there's 2 ways to do this. In PowerPoint, what we did was we had to move our cursor, so you can see the little paintbrush here, and then click and drag to select. But in Word, I can just simply go out to the left margin and click. All right, so I don't have to use the click and drag or select and drag. I can just use the right margin. Okay, so now they want us to select this text office assistant, and they want it to be bold and italics. Oh, notice as well that not only did it copy the formats, but it also copied the paragraph format, which was centered. So this text was centered as a result. All right, so I want to copy these formats to all of my subheadings so that I have a consistent look and feel to my document. All right, so I'm going to go up to the format painter. I'm going to click it twice so that it will stay on, and then again just move my cursor to the left margin, click on each one, and when I'm done I want to turn off the format painter. You can see I still have the little paintbrush there. To turn it off, I can either click on the format painter button a second time or hit the escape button. Okay. Okay, we're on skill number 8, apply advanced font settings. So first thing you're going to do is go to the top of your document, so Control Home to go to the top, or you can scroll up and select the first line, Aspen Falls Human Resources. Now I want to apply, so if I look at the mini toolbar, you can see that there are some commands here, but not all of them. If I go to the Home tab, you can see I have more commands, but there are other commands that don't show on the formula bar, or on the ribbon. And the reason being is that when they created the ribbon, they only put on the commands that were most often used. But if you wanted to look at more commands that are available, you can look in the bottom right hand corner of the font group. There's this thing called the dialog launcher. So there's one here. You can see there's one over here for paragraph, there's one over here for styles, there's one over here for the clipboard. So if there are more options than you can see on the ruler, then you have to go to the dialog launcher. You can also, if I was to right click here, I can click on font. So that's going to bring up the font dialog box. That's exactly the same thing as if I simply click the dialog launcher. I get the same option. Now the dialog box actually has 2 sections. So I'm going to go back to font, and you can see here that I have, so some of these commands like strike through is here, but double strike through is not there. Superscript and subscript are here, but small caps is not there. All caps is not here, and hidden, of course, is not there. So I want to change this to regular, which will get rid of the bolding, and small caps. And you can see on this little preview, it shows you what it's going to look like. So with small caps, it basically has, they're all caps, but the first letter of every word is bigger than the other ones. So that's small caps. All caps is just all capitalized. Okay? All right, so I'm going to apply that. And I also want to go in and change my spacing. So I'm going to go back to my launcher, and I'm going to click on Advanced. And I'm going to change the scale from 100% to 150. And I'm going to change the spacing from normal to expanded by 3. All right, and so I get this effect now of Aspen Falls just kind of spread out a bit. Okay, and that's it for this one. Okay, I'm going to combine the last two skills, so create document footers and PDFs, because PDFs only takes a couple of seconds to work through. So what we're going to look at now are headers and footers. Now we looked at headers and footers in PowerPoint, and you saw that headers and footers in PowerPoint were fairly restrictive. In other words, if you had a header or a footer on a slide, it went to a predetermined location, and it was very restricted as to what you could put into it. And the same thing with your notes and handouts pages. On Word, on the other hand, headers and footers are very, very extensive, and they provide a huge amount of flexibility and a huge amount of, in some cases, complexity. So we're going to just kind of scratch the surface on headers and footers, which is probably 99% of the time all you really want to do anyway. So the thing to be aware of when you're creating headers and footers is you probably want to be at the top of your document before you create the headers and footers. And the reason why I'll show you, actually we don't cover it this week, but we'll cover it in the next week or two. So to create a header and footer, you're going to go to the Insert tab, because again, the Insert tab is where you add new things to your document. And you've got a headers and footers group here. So there's header, footer, page number. Now understand, page number is just a specialized header and footer. So we're going to use footer right now, but we could use header as well. So headers appear at the top of your document, and footers appear at the top of your page, and footers appear at the bottom of your page. So we're going to add a footer. And again, there are numerous pre-built footers. You can see them here. Some of them will have images in them. Some of them will have special characters and what have you. In this course, we are not going to use any of the pre-built headers and footers. So we're going to strictly go down here to Edit Footer. Within Edit Footer, it opens up your document. Now you can see that it's changed your view from normal view to print layout view. And you've got the word footer here, and my insertion point is here right now. So what I want to do in here, and this is crucial for you when you're working in my IT lab, it's now going to tell you to insert the file name into the document here. So the file name is up here on the tab here, so you can see there's great letters and memos, start file, bracket 1, bracket .docx. So that's my file name. I could type that in here if I wanted to, right? But I don't want to do it that way. And if you're working with my IT lab, you don't want to do it that way either. What we want to actually do is take advantage of some of the pre-built functions within Word to add the file name to my document. So when I'm in the footer, I've got this brand new menu called Header and Footer Tools, or Header and Footer. And here there's header, footer, page number, so the three things we're working with. And then these are the items that I can add into my headers and footers. So I've got my date and time, document information, quick parts. I could put in a picture or an online picture, and we'll do that in a couple of weeks. Quick parts are pre-built fields. So again, Word can be hugely complicated, especially if you're doing things like, I'll give you an example. If you're working in a legal office, building wills. Wills are usually just a whole bunch of pre-built paragraphs that they lump together, and depending on the circumstances, they'll pick this paragraph and that paragraph and so on, and then they'll customize it for whoever's dealing with that. So if I click here on Fields, you can see that there are all of these pre-built fields within Microsoft Word. So things like subject, style, skip, and section page numbers, and so on and so forth. We only want to have the file name, so it's right here, file name. I click that, I can make some formatting changes to it. I can add the path, so C:\\, and so on. But in this case, I just want to add the file name, right? And see what it does is it basically takes the file name that's at the top of your document and moves it down here into the footer. But for my IT lab, you can't just type in the file name, because if you do, my IT lab will mark it incorrect, because what they want is the file name field, which is identified internally in Word differently than you can see it here. So just be aware that when you're working with an IT lab, you want to use the field. Now, also, there is this new item here called document info. Document info is where they have simply taken some of the more common fields and added them here. So I could have done it this way. I'm just going to delete what I've done, so Control Z to get it back out again. And instead of going to Quick Part Field, I'm going to go here to Document Information and, instead of going Quick Part Field and then looking for file name, I'm going to go to Document Info, File Name, and it does exactly the same thing. And that's perfectly valid for my IT lab. I can use either of those two methods to add that file name. Okay, now I'm going to close my headers and footers. The other options that you have here we're going to come up and we'll deal with differently within, or we'll cover later in the course. So I'm going to close my headers and footers. So skill number 10 is just to create a PDF. They do it kind of the hard way. They went to File, Export, Create PDF here. There's a faster way to do it. You can simply go File, Save As, and change my file name type to PDF. Right? If I click on Save, oops, I should have, it's now saved it as a PDF. Let me just go back and do that again. File, Save As, PDF. If I click on More Options, then I have some further options here. So minimum size or standard printing options here, so I can say, what do I want? Do I want the whole document, just the current page, or pages 1 to 3, or what have you? Document properties, so I want to carry those over, so that's the properties that show on your who's using the document and so on. Okay, and then I could open the file after publishing, which would then open it up in Adobe Acrobat Reader or what have you. The reason you use a PDF file is that you don't necessarily want to give somebody access to your Word document where they can change it and make changes to it and change the content of the document. You just want to do it as a PDF where they can read it, and it's more difficult to make changes to it. I mean, there are ways to change PDF files, and you can always just copy and paste from a PDF file into a Word document, so you do have some options there, but that's primarily what we're doing here. So okay, so that's it for Create Letters and Memos, our first week in Microsoft Word. See you now.